Okay, we are ready. Good afternoon. I'm Fred Fairchild, President of the Faculty Senate here at Kansas State University. We're delighted to present to you in this open forum this afternoon the first of our candidates for the President of Kansas State University. We also are privileged to have connected with us today the Salina campus, who will be able to view what we're doing, and also will be able to have an audio connection later in the program. We're also streaming this through the K-State website. It's on Wildcat Television to all the dorms, and it's on Channel 8 to all the city and the Cox Network. So there's nothing, he can't hide now. We've got him covered. And he's graciously consented to do that. A couple of things about the format this afternoon. We'll open our forum with about a 20-minute presentation from our candidate. Then we'll have a question and answer period, and there are two mics down here at the floor level, which I would ask you to come down to and ask your questions from. I will moderate that question and answer period, and I will ask you to keep your questions short and brief. Upon the completion of the question and answer period, the candidate and his wife will move to the union open area out here, and you may have a chance to come up, meet and greet them, and say hello to them. So we want to give you that privilege too. I'd like to introduce the table. Sitting first is Jonathan McClellan, Student Body President from Salina. Next, Jonathan. Next is Kirk Schulz, the wife of our candidate. Noel is Associate Professor and TVA Endowed Professorship of Power Systems Engineering, the Department of Electronics and Computer Engineering at Mississippi State University. Let's go ahead. The next is Jennifer Owensby. Jennifer is President of the Classified Senate at Kansas State University. And also sitting at the end of the table, Lydia Peel, President of the Student Body here at Kansas State University. We have among us a number of other faculty, number of other members of the search committee, and I would like all the members of the search committee present in the audience to please stand. Now it's my privilege to introduce our speaker. Dr. Kirk Schulz is a Virginian. He was raised in Norfolk, Virginia. He attended and graduated from Norfolk Christian High School. For 3 years, he attended Old Dominion University and then transferred to Virginia Tech, where he earned his BS and PhD degrees in chemical engineering. Following graduation from Virginia Tech, he went to the hinterlands and became an assistant professor in chemical engineering at the University of North Dakota. So the cold weather today he's familiar with. From there, he spent 4 years there and then moved in 1995 to Michigan Tech as an assistant professor of chemical engineering. And while he was there, he was promoted to associate professor in 1998 and assumed the chairmanship of the Department of Chemical Engineering at Michigan Tech that same year. In 2001, Dr. Schulz moved to Mississippi State University to become the director of the Dave C. Swaim School of Chemical Engineering and holder of the Ernest W. Davenport Jr. Endowed Chair. In 2005, he was selected Dean of Engineering of the James Worth Bagley College of Engineering and the inaugural holder of the Ernest W. and Mary Ann Davenport Jr. Endowed Chair. In 2007, he was named Interim Vice President for Research and Economic Development and was named permanently to that position later that same year and currently serves as a Vice President of Research and Economic Development at Mississippi State University. He's a member of numerous professional associations, and I might add they have 2 sons. And that's my privilege now to introduce to you our speaker today, Dr. Kirk Schulz. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me? Okay, wonderful. What I want to talk to you a little bit about today is K-State in 2025, a vision for the future. I want to share with you some of my ideas and some of what if I was to be selected as president here at Kansas State University, I would want us to do as a campus community and look a little bit about the strengths and things that I think are tremendous here, and also share with you a few ideas about some opportunities for growth and things that I think we could look at and see in the future. So let me start off with just a picture of the other members of the Schulz leadership clan here. The young man that's over here on this end is my younger son Andrew. He's an 8th grader at our local public school system and would be a rising freshman in high school this next fall. On the far end is my oldest son Tim, who's a senior at the Mississippi School for Math and Science, which is a residential math and science focused high school that's about 30 miles from us. And Tim will be a freshman at Mississippi State in computer science and engineering. He certainly told us that we can move wherever we want to, but he's going to stay right in warm Starkville. So in the middle is my wife and myself, and this is at Diamond Head State Monument. The reason Noel and I have got our hands on the top is if you've ever climbed sort of this vertical half-mile thing and come back down, we were hanging on for dear life. So, well, the question I really want to sort of spend a little time on is how do we make a great university better? If I pull up U.S. News and World Report and look at the national university list, Kansas State is listed as one of the top 72 institutions nationally. Now, there's hundreds of research institutions that are out there, so there's a lot of respect in the academic world at large for Kansas State University and what it is that makes this place a special university, what it is that causes you to want to come to work every day, what causes students to want to come here and graduate students and things like this. So you've already got a great foundation. What sort of things might we want to look at in the future? Well, what are the characteristics of Kansas State University I think are critical? And I've sort of listed them around here. Remember the Big 12 Athletic Conference. That is actually a critical item because you're on TV. A lot of people are associated with the university and know about it nationally because of the success of football and men's and women's basketball. NBAF, this has certainly been out there in a lot of places. You can't sort of do a media Google search without K-State coming up associated with NBAF, which we'll talk about later, is really an outstanding opportunity. I think we have an opportunity to enhance the reputation of the institution, and we'll visit about that some. Academic marketing, what sort of things can we do to enhance our faculty here and keep our best and brightest faculty at Kansas State and not have them leave for supposedly greener pastures at other institutions? What can we do to maintain our focus as a student-centered research university? We have a land-grant mission, and one of the questions that I've been asked time and time again today is, Kirk, what do you think it means to be a land-grant institution, and why is that important? And then there's a wonderful and expanding international presence here, and this came up in a lot of conversations as well, is what can we do to enhance the international experience that we have at this institution? So what I think we need to do is we need to sort of look in our crystal ball and say, what should Kansas State University look like in 2025? How big do we want it to be? What should our research portfolio look like? What sort of programs do we need to have? What should the campus footprint look like? What kind of national reputation do we want to have? And go on and so on and so forth. So I want you to envision that none of this is set in stone, but the idea is to start having some discussion about this in that purple-colored crystal ball, if you can envision that. Have other universities done this? Well, Texas A&M has developed their Vision 2020, which seeks to place them at a very high level. They spend about 18 months to 2 years, engage their entire campus community, their faculty, their staff, their alumni, everybody in saying, what should Texas A&M look like? Clemson University has their Top 20 initiative, which seeks to make them a Top 20 public university. This is on the web as well. LSU had their Vision 2010 document, which said, what does it mean to be the flagship land-grant institution in the state of Louisiana, and what does that have to say about what our future needs to hold? I want to develop a similar sort of thing collectively with the K-State family. What should we look like in this year? Well, one of the key things, I don't know if you're familiar with this book, it's called about building on your strengths. And what it is, you read this book and there's a little internet survey that you take. partway through it. And the premise of this particular kind of leadership and personal growth book is that people spend way too much time focused on their weaknesses. Well, you know, I'm not so good at this, so I'm going to spend all this time on this. Well, the book says institutionally, organizationally, and personally, you should spend time taking what you're already good at and making sure that you make it even better. So if we look at Kansas State University and we talk about 2025, what you don't want to do is sort of throw out the proverbial baby with the bathwater. Let's keep the strengths here. So we must preserve the strengths which define the K-State educational experience. Why are alumni so excited about their experience here? Well, faculty, the institution, lots of different things that are out there. You want to preserve those things. We have to maintain a strong focus as the student-centered university in Kansas. And I think if you're not careful, you can sort of lose that, and that's important to be there. It's also a land-grant institution, which means that we have an opportunity and an obligation to have a very active extension and research mission, and those are important as well. So when we talk about looking toward the future, keep in mind that these are the sorts of things that we want to make sure that we maintain. So the educational experience, what kind of things might we do to enhance our undergraduate educational experience? Well, one of the things that we did at Mississippi State is we attracted a major donor who was able to give us significant endowment funds to move our honors program to an honors college. And what that meant is we had more opportunities for undergraduates to do research, to bring in prominent speakers, to have smaller classes, the things that characterize currently your honors program, but it gives it more resources and becomes a magnet for us to attract some of the best and brightest students in the state of Kansas and in surrounding states to come and participate in that K-State educational experience. We can enhance our freshman experience. When I was originally a student as an undergraduate, went to registration and got orange cards. Where I went to school, they handed out these paper, looked like computer punch cards. And that was, and then they sort of pointed you and said, that's where your class is, you know, I hope you find it okay. That was the freshman experience. At several schools, if you look at the Franklin College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Georgia, University of Tennessee, and several places, they have a freshman seminar program where students take one-credit classes that are focused on areas of current need. So for example, you might have a class now that is, how did the economy get to be in this particular shape? Is T. Boone Pickens' wonderful energy plan that everybody's seen on TV worth anything? The Oscar pictures that came out, what is it that's characteristic about those movies and things like that. So they're topical things, and they're designed for students to be able to explore different and new areas. This is the kind of thing that you want to use as an attractor to say, hey, you come to Kansas State University, this is part of your experience here. You could be majoring in chemical engineering, but you can take a course over here in something to be a lot different that's a one-credit exploratory course designed to expand your horizons as a freshman. And then why is it important to be a research university from an undergraduate educational experience? I think this allows students to explore questions and problems and issues for which there is no immediate answer. Many of the students that you have here that do such a wonderful job in the classroom, maybe they go through and yeah, they've been a little bit challenged. What a better way to challenge them than involve them in a research project. Now, you certainly already do this, but I think we need to looking at how we can expand this so that as many students as possible have an organized, important, wonderful experience working with our faculty on a research project. I also think we need to look at expanding the student body. There's no magic number that it has to be X number of students, but if you look in the state of Texas and the state of Florida right now, there are more high school students coming out that can go into their marquee sort of research-oriented schools. So there's a 10% rule in the state of Texas. If you're not in the top 10% of your high school class, you can't get into Texas A&M or the University of Texas at Austin. Well, a lot of those students that might go to Texas A&M want a land-grant, research, educational experience, and I think they could benefit very strongly by coming here to Kansas State University. So we need to look out at some of these other areas and make sure that we're doing everything we can to try and recruit some additional students to participate in what is an outstanding educational experience. One of the other questions I got asked a lot today was about international programs and international students and what sort of things we can continue to do. I think the days where a student can come to school anywhere, say K-State, go back and work in a rural county in the state of Kansas and say, I'm not going to worry about this international stuff. It has nothing to do with me or what my future is going to be. What happens when the economic development for that region comes in and says, hey, we got a company coming in from this particular country and they'd like to locate here. Well, guess what? All of a sudden now some of that knowing how to work with international visitors, being comfortable with accents, knowing how to behave and interact in a professional sense needs to all be there. And how do you get that? You get that by, one, continuing to make sure you've got many students from abroad coming to Kansas State University, and two, making sure that our students here and our faculty have opportunities to study outside of the United States. So currently, I think in really a far-looking initiative was to put recruitment centers in China and India. But there's other areas of the world, in Europe and South America and Central America, and I'd like to see these expanded campuses there that are also destinations for our faculty and staff to go and spend study leaves and things like this as well. So not simply for recruitment of students to come to Manhattan, but also as really a global presence that we have out there. A diverse campus is really, really critical. Diversity can mean lots of things. In my mind, it means diversity in experiences and background and race and gender and things like this. It's important for our students to be comfortable in a diverse environment. One of the things that Kansas State led on for many years and still continues to be a national leader on is dual career couples. Noel and I were doing some research very early in our career, and the Kansas State model was really an outstanding model. I would like to see K-State continue to be the destination place for dual career couples, that institutionally we continue to focus on this and we go out of our way to make this a great place for both people to be able to work and have wonderful careers. Well, the other part of this is enhancing partnerships. One of the jobs as a president is to go out and secure as many resources as possible to allow you all as faculty to be able to do the sorts of things that you want to do, to make sure our students have the best facilities and things like that. The National Bio and Agro Defense Facility is a true opportunity for Manhattan and Kansas State University. Now, the fact that the federal lab is going to be here is only part of that. So we need to make sure that we build on the K-State success at landing MBAF. Right now you do MBAF and you do a Google search, K-State comes up a lot. We need to make sure that we're using that to build and enhance the reputation of the university on a national basis. This is going to have a big effect on the entire university and community because there are going to be other entities that want to locate here to be close by MBAF. And guess what? Those other entities are going to hire accountants. They're going to need people to scientists. They're going to need engineers. They're going to need more than just single disciplines are going to have to work and live at those places. And those folks are going to come and they're going to buy season tickets to athletic events. They're going to send their children to the school system. They're going to buy stuff from local merchants. This is going to have an effect on everybody. So it's important to seek significant industrial partnerships as people move into the region. And let me use as an example the Clemson University International Center for Automotive Research, or CUICAR. That was located in Greenville, South Carolina. It's about 70 miles away from the Clemson campus. And when they talked about partnerships in this automotive center, it was a partnership in terms of not just hiring our graduates and not just building a physical presence, but money coming back to the university. So there was 4 endowed chairs that were established as part of these partnerships with BMW and Michelin and places like that, that allowed the university to attract leading scholars to then work not just with a company but with the university. So it's not just locating here, but we need to make sure that these partnerships are having a positive impact on our ability to move the university ahead. We also want to make sure that this is a terrific place for faculty and staff to live and work. And one of the things that's important will be retaining and recruiting exceptional faculty members. One of my primary emphases, or proposed primary emphases as president, will be endowed chairs and endowed professorships. I've seen the difference that these can make, and not from the perspective of having an endowed chair that we go out and necessarily have to find somebody at a different university to bring in, but an endowed chair to recognize excellence that's already here. So that somebody who's been here for 20, 25 years, built a superb research program, done a great job teaching, one of those faculty members that you say, boy, it'd really hurt if we lose this person. These are the sort of folks that we need to be making sure that we're going out and getting resources to keep at Kansas State University. I think another thing that's really important is honorifics. Many times we see these awards come out, and you look at it and say, well, you know, it's going to go to somebody at Texas or Stanford or whatever. I'm not even going to bother nominating anybody. And you don't think about the person down the hall. You folks, you can't win the race if you don't enter. And so one of the things that's going to be really critical is picking out some critical key things like National Academy memberships and nominations for major society fellows and other sort of awards. What I'm proposing is that we have a group of folks on campus that make sure that we are at least nominating people for these different awards and recognition. Not only is it important that we win, but guess what? Those nomination committees are seeing a high quality person come through from K-State University, and the people of influence there will go, you know what? I couldn't believe that person finished second, but you know what? I'll bet they're going to win it next year. That's important for us to do. We also have to examine creative solutions to deal with the issues of faculty and staff compensation. Looking at the Faculty Senate website, the faculty salaries at K-State are among the bottom in the Big 12. They rose to 11 one year. So we've sort of kind of been there at the basement for many years. It would be nice to think that the next president could simply go beat harder on the state legislature and that this would be fixed. But I think we have to look at other sorts of revenue streams that can be used. In the College of Engineering at Mississippi State, 10 years ago, there was one endowed chair, no endowed professorships. Okay, today we have nearly 40, 20 endowed chairs, approximately a little less than that, and a little less than 20 endowed professorships. So now we've gone from 2% of the faculty to maybe 30% of the faculty have some salary supplements in that way. Now, if somebody would have said 10 years ago, oh, you think you can have 33 of these endowed positions in 10 years, everybody going, no way, not a chance. I'd like to see us add somewhere on the order of 200 to 250 endowed chairs and professorships over the next 10 years. As we grow our student body, we need to take some of that revenue that's coming in and also put it back in the salary pool. Got to look at multiple different things to try and address this particular problem. What can we do to enhance K-State's national reputation? If I show this PowerCat logo virtually anywhere in the United States, people will recognize us as Kansas State University. And you say, well, why? Oh, well, I remember watching the Big 12 football game and yeah, Kansas State was there. Well, tell me about the institution. What do you know about it? Well, the conversation may kind of dry up a little bit at that point because people may not know much about the institution. So one of our things that we need to do is leverage our national exposure to get people to also highlight our academic programs and the things that we do here. I want, as president, within 4 or 5 years, when somebody sees the PowerCat, I want them to think, yes, successful Big 12 athletic programs, but they got a terrific vet school. Oh, they got a top-ranked education graduate school. These sorts of things. And it has to be done by a proactive academic marketing plan so that what we do is work on our peers, Texas A&M, these other institutions, to make sure that they know about the great things that are happening at this institution. So at the end of this process, and say I'm fortunate enough to be selected as president, what do you got? Sort of what did you buy? Well, I think there's 5 things that I want to sort of leave you with as I finish my remarks before we get into the question time. First, I want to work in a collaborative way with faculty, staff, and students on how to move K-State forward. This is not a top-down thing. It's not that Kirk becomes president and I sort of get the tablets in my arms and walk across campus and say, here's how it's going to be. Okay? I want to work with everybody towards greater national prominence, and that requires a lot of dialogue, a lot of communication, and so on. Secondly, I'm going to communicate frequently and often with faculty, staff, and students. One of the keys of success for any university is engagement of their faculty and staff about where we go. If you get 1,200 faculty deciding they're going to do something, you better watch out, because the university will accomplish whatever it needs to. It's getting everybody on board and having everybody as part of the process is very important. Third, I will be the #1 cheerleader for the institution. It's very important for the president to be out there always being optimistic and always promoting the excellent things that are happening here. Fourth, largely presidents at the end of the day are looked at to be resource acquirers, going out, raising money, developing partnerships, providing resources back so that you all can be successful in the things that you're trying to do, which is educate students, perform cutting-edge research, and perform extension and outreach to the community and state of Kansas. And finally, I'm going to have fun doing it, and hopefully you're going to have fun doing it as well. I think it's important that we learn that we can continue to laugh about things. It's hard to laugh at budget cuts, but it's some way you got to find to keep things light and keep things in perspective about what it is that we're trying to do, what the opportunities are here. So if I can finally click this right, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. So thank you.
We have 2 microphones at the front of the audience, and we'd invite anyone who would like to ask a question to step to the microphone. We also have the Salina campus with us, and they will have an opportunity to also ask some questions. I ask that you identify yourself, and whether you're a faculty or graduate student, and ask your question. Keep them brief. Don't give us a long history. Thank you. We'll start over here.
Great. My name is Ben Champion. I'm the new Director of Sustainability for the university, in addition to half-time assistant professor in geography. Okay. And I am curious about what kind of experience you've had in working on sustainability issues at Mississippi State or elsewhere. And also, if you're aware that we have a sustainability task force that's very similar in nature to what you've talked about in terms of having a broad campus conversation, and that task force will be producing a report right in line with the time in which you might be taking up your post. And I'm curious how you would endeavor to work with that task force and its recommendations in moving forward.
Great. As I talked to the Faculty Senate Executive Committee, a similar question came up about the sustainability and my support of sustainability. I think it's important that we have some campus conversations to agree what we mean by sustainability. So there's different sort of versions and definitions out there. Everything from, are you buying stuff from local particular producers at the university, to how are you using your endowment funds and what kind of places are they invested in. So I think the first part of that is to make sure there's some general agreement about what we mean on sustainability. We are just starting a similar effort at Mississippi State. We have 2 people from my office that are engaged in that, and we're trying to assess what sort of things that we can do and not do. Is it going to be important for us to be a more sustainable campus? Absolutely. I think we have to make sure we pick and choose carefully what things that we're going to be able to do in the next couple of years, given a financial situation that may not allow for lots of new funding for things right away. But absolutely, things we can do with recycling, improvement in buildings, better use of our resources and things, we need to explore those, and some of those probably implement sooner than later. So,
over here.
Hello, John Mahoney, Assistant Professor of Philosophy. Many faculty, myself included, believe that too many university presidents focus too much on what we might call the business side of the university and not enough on the academic side. For instance, presidents who focus too much on public relations and not enough on academic culture or academic standards. We also know that under that kind of regime, the humanities or disciplines within the humanities fare worse than others. So my question is, what's your view about that kind of issue, and were you to be president, what would you do about it?
Okay. I think that the role of university presidents continues to evolve and change, and I think if you look at a university president coming in today versus 20 years ago, probably the demands on the external part of being a university president now are far worse than they even were 20-some years ago in terms of fundraising and dealing with state and federal legislators and those sorts of things. So generally speaking, I believe that the provost would set the tone for the way the academic things occur at the university. However, as president, I would want to be engaged and involved with what sort of things are happening on our campus. I want everybody, all units, to excel. And whether that's in the humanities or that's in the College of Agriculture or Engineering or wherever it is, we want to have a strong university. So, for example, I think it's critical that the president have some involvement in some sort of academic pursuits, serving on doctoral committees, things like this, to make sure that you got some time in a classroom or some time out there where you've got a little bit of an idea of what the faculty and people in the trenches are having to deal with. But overall, I think the role of the president is primarily as an external person, and so while I want to be involved, I think it would be disingenuous for me to portray that I'm going to probably try and set that tone for the institution.
Selina, do you have any questions?
I guess not.
If not, we'll go forward for a brief moment before we recognize the next questioner. You were given an opportunity to have a purple sheet given to you, and this is for you to give feedback to the committee of some of your thoughts and comments after this forum. We ask that these be returned to us at the end of the forum, and if you choose to fax them back, that they're faxed back no later than noon tomorrow. We appreciate your input for the faculty's efforts. Selina, did you have a question? You may have to turn on your mic, Selina. We cannot hear you. Let's continue here, and hopefully we'll get that straightened out. Sir?
Sales representative. I went to Kansas State in 1972 as a transfer student. Sir, if you were selected by the NCAA to serve on the competition committee and the chair introduced a proposal for a vote for a 14 playoff in college football, would you support a playoff? Would you vote for a playoff for college football if you were serving on the committee and you had a chance to vote for it?
I think the answer is probably no. I would love, as a fan, to see college football played out that way. I worked at a Division II school that did a football playoff that way. The problem is you've got to stop the season so much earlier, and it's hard to figure out how the bowls would fit into that, and I just don't want our student athletes in football playing football until February. I think that's just too late. So, and I would have to look at it more thoroughly, and I'm sure I would want to talk to Coach Snyder and our athletic director to get their viewpoints on that. But if I had to choose right now, the answer would be no.
It depends upon the format. If it was a 14 playoff where the first game is a week after final exams and the last game of the 14 playoff was about when the BCS championship game has already been played, maybe that would be the best workable way.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Over here, please.
I'm Michael Lambert. I'm an assistant professor of geology here. I was wondering, do you believe that members of the LGBT community should continue to be protected against discrimination on this campus?
I think it's important that we have a campus that is free from discrimination, regardless of racial, sexual, any sort of orientation. So as president, I think that's something that I would want to make sure that we have a campus that's inclusive of everybody and that nobody feels that they're being discriminated against.
Over here.
Good afternoon. My name is Ann Smith, and I'm the director of the Riley County Area Transportation Agency. We provide public transportation services to Manhattan and Riley County. We are in the process of planning to implement a fixed route transit system for Manhattan. For this system to be successful, it must include integrating the public transit needs of the university. If you are chosen to become the next president of KSU, do you envision playing an active role in facilitating KSU's participation in a fixed route public transit service?
Yes. You probably like more than just yes, but I think especially given the number of international students and students from abroad, those of you who've traveled places like Europe and stuff know that you don't need a car. You can just get just about anywhere with public transportation and trains and buses and so on. So I think if we're going to continue to expand our international presence here, it's going to be critical that we have a good public transportation system. So we want to do everything we can to support it. I think finding out ways to cover the capital costs of starting something like that is probably the biggest challenge.
Over here, Charlie.
Welcome to Kansas, Dr. Schulz.
Thank you.
My name is Charlie Griffin. I'm the head of the Department of Communication Studies, Theater, and Dance. And you can guess what my question is. It has to do with what role you see for the arts in a comprehensive land-grant university.
Sure. Like I mentioned earlier, I think I want to see all programs be really exceptional. I think, however, one of the challenges that we have, and I'll drop into my stereotypical land-grant role, is a lot of times you look and say, well, they're going to educate great people out of the agricultural areas and engineering and veterinary medicine and so on. And it's important that those students, that all students, but particularly those students, gain an appreciation for the arts, that they be exposed to the arts and things as a student, because many of them may not have seen that, particularly from rural areas. So I think it's all part of the overall educational experience that students ought to get when they come to college. So it's critical. We need to make sure that it's strong and that it's well supported both by the university and the community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
My name is Huifeng Yu. I'm currently serving as the Vice President of China Student and Scholars Association, and also I'm a sophomore in chemical engineering.
Great. Good field. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Let's deal with that. My question is, so if you are going to be the president of K-State, what do you expect from us international students? And what kind of opportunities are you going to provide or create or unblock for us international students? Because sometimes the opportunities at K-State are relatively limited due to our citizenship. Thank you.
Sure. I think one of the things that I would like to see us is continue to expand our international student presence. And so part of what I would want to do is to visit with several of the student organizations and groups of students and say, what could we do to enhance and help your experience at K-State to make it even better? And so we need to be hearing centrally that kind of feedback and say, this is a frustration for us, or this is something we would like to see, and develop a plan and make sure that we're interacting on a very regular basis so that what the best recruiter we have for Kansas State is for you to go somewhere and say, what a great experience I had. I love the faculty, the community was embracing, and the institution was everything I hoped it to be, not, boy, if I had to make that decision again, I think I'd probably decide to go somewhere else. So that kind of communication back and forth. So I don't have any specific things right now because I'm not aware of everything that's being done, but that was the methodology that I think we would try and employ so that I, as president, had some ideas of what we could do to improve. Yeah, you're welcome.
Is there a question from Salina now?
Professor Fairchild, can you hear us now?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Fred. Come through.
Wonderful. Dr. Schulz, I'm Fred Guzik from the College of Technology and Aviation here in Salina. Welcome to Kansas State. We're glad that you came to visit us.
Thank you.
I noticed that Mississippi State has a remote campus called the Meridian Campus, and that the Meridian Campus has a strong focus on business and industry, including some graduate programs. Here at Salina in the College of Technology and Aviation, we're in the process of creating a graduate program, a professional master's in technology, and I wondered if you know things from the Mississippi State experience with your Meridian Campus that could help us to develop a fledgling graduate program here at a remote campus in Salina.
I think there's a couple things that are really critical with developing graduate programs. If a campus or group of faculty has largely just done undergraduate programs, sometimes the resource base is not there immediately to provide assistantships, to make sure that if it's a thesis-oriented project that there's laboratories and the support needed to really make sure those graduate students have a good experience. I think the other critical part is to make sure that the Salina campus feels integrated and part of the K-State family as a whole, and that's been something that our Meridian campus at Mississippi State, which is about 90 miles away, has sometimes felt isolated. So one of the things that we try and do is make sure that the president is there frequently, that the vice presidents are there frequently, and we offer some workshops and seminars on our main campus and then as well in the Meridian campus to make sure that those faculty sort of feel part of the overall educational experience. So I commend you on starting that. I think that's a great program and will make an important contribution to that community, but probably issues of dealing with graduate students and projects and laboratories and the expense of that will be the kind of thing that we would need to address jointly.
Thank you, Salina.
Thank you.
Over here, please.
Hi, I'm Eric Dover with the Information Technology Assistance Center. I have a question. What role do you see IT playing in the future of Kansas State University, and what key technologies do you see having the greatest impact on higher education in the next 5 to 10 years?
Okay. IT is going to continue to play an increasingly large and complex role, particularly in the research enterprise and the way that we teach. So I'd love to think that IT budgets would be flat because we don't have to continue to invest, but I think that's just not a realistic viewpoint of the future. For example, in the state of Mississippi, one of the things we're struggling with is Internet 2 connectivity and things like that that require a lot of infrastructure dollars to make sure those things are still there. So I want to make sure that our students, when they come here, see a high technology environment that is appropriate and is helping them in their educational experience. I think we're seeing the advent of portable computing continues to make inroads in the classroom. So we happen to have a laptop requirement in our College of Engineering at Mississippi State, so you won't find computer labs in our engineering school anywhere. So what that means is that students bring laptops into class, they use them for lots of different assignments, they bring them into the laboratories. It changes some of the way that you teach using that sort of technology. Now, I picked on laptops. You can argue over different sort of platforms, but I think the idea of sort of computing everywhere is really changing the way we do educational experience. I mean, I've gone something like 4 hours all day without checking my BlackBerry and my hand's starting to shake. And so I think those sorts of things as well. 10 years ago, you could walk across a college campus and you actually said hello to people. Okay, today, they're all talking on their phones. Just think of when you walk out there. I mean, I tripped on things because I'm, texting or whatever. But so I think we have to make sure that that we're keeping pace with those sorts of things that today's students are going to expect to see in a classroom and communicate that way. So.
Very good. Over here, please.
Thanks for coming today. My question, and my name is Paul Mittner, and I'm a junior in political science, and I work in new student services for our Office of Admissions. And I'm an out-of-state student, so I do appreciate the idea of recruiting students from out of state. I think that's great because there's burgeoning populations there. But one of the great things we can tell every single prospective student when they come to campus is we put students first, and the undergraduate experience that you get here is better than anywhere in the nation. And I think that's absolutely true. That's what I've seen. But my question, I guess, is how do we balance this family welcoming atmosphere that we give to every one of the students with the growing population that you'd like to see to maintain the balance between that atmosphere with a larger population of students?
Yeah. I think it's important to have dialogue about any sort of expansion of students to make sure that you don't lose the things that have made the educational experience here so important. So that's why I don't know that you can set a number on what we would like to have, but at the same time, there can be difficulties politically with declining or flat enrollments. People sort of say, you can say, we do such a wonderful educational job here, but people in the state will go, well, nothing must be happening because they don't seem to be getting any more additional students than they had previous years. So sustained, controlled growth, I think, is important, but if I ask you about what specifically makes your educational experience so good, Okay, and you'll come up with a list of some different things, the campus and the faculty and the traditions and these different sort of things. We can put that together and say, okay, we've got to make sure that no matter what we do with the number of students, that these are sort of our core values that we're going to preserve, that are important, so that when you hopefully send your children here, they're going to get the same kind of experience that you got that makes it such a special place. So a lot of it is making sure, like I had in my slides, we don't throw out and get rid of some of the wonderful things that we're doing in an uncontrolled urge to get bigger or somehow better by making numbers larger than they are that may not really help enhance what we like to do. I want to make sure that our educational experience here is second to none. And I need that by making sure that students like yourself can help us say, hey, if we had another 1,000 students over a 4 or 5 year period, these are the things we better preserve to make sure it's the same place as I came to school.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Schulz. We welcome you to Kansas State University and Wildcat Land. Could you please define diversity? And then the second part of the question, based on your definition of diversity, what do you see as your role as president in implementing your definition of diversity?
Right. I look upon diversity in probably the broadest sense, but in general, I'd like to see people with different gender, different race, different experiences and backgrounds. And that's what I look upon when I say I'd like a diverse environment or I want a diverse team. So I might have some younger people, some more senior people, some African Americans, and so on. Now, one of the key things I think at a land-grant institution and a state institution that's really critical is diversity is somewhat dependent on where you are. So in the state of Kansas, we have a small but growing Hispanic population, so I think that means that one of the things that university's got to make sure that we're doing a good job of is making sure those Hispanic students come here to school rather than going anywhere else, because we have a welcoming environment, role models, mentors, people that make them feel like this is a real home. So that's sort of my definition of diversity as president. I think you have to look and say, what does the president's executive team look like? When Kirk is involved with hiring, does he actually try and build and see a diverse pool of candidates? Or is he going to do the same thing that's been done time and time again? So I believe we have to hire and get the very best people, but I think what we need to do is make sure that we build the most diverse pools possible so that we give some of those folks a chance to really be considered.
Thank you.
Sure.
Senator Dodd.
Good afternoon. Thank you for speaking with us this afternoon.
Thank you.
I'm Elizabeth Dodd, and I teach in the English department. During your talk, you spoke of the need to have a broad dialogue with faculty, with administration, with alumni, in visioning the strategic plan for 2025. Would you mind talking with us a little bit more specifically about what that conversation might look like? What specific structures or systems you believe we may already have in place on campus to facilitate that conversation? Anything that we may be lacking that you would want to establish in order for us to have that kind of a talk? Thank you.
Sure. A couple things. One is, I think for a broad visioning document like that, the president has to have some formal involvement. In other words, I don't think you can sort of put a group of people together and walk away and say 6 months from now I'd like a particular document. I think it's important for the president to be engaged in that, because I'll be out trying to sell this to the legislature, to the federal government, to our donors, to people outside the institution. So it needs to be something I've got some personal investment and engagement in. What I would foresee happening is putting together an idea, my idea of where I would like to see Kansas State University be in 2025, a top X public university or some particular measure like that. Spend 6 months discussing that on campus, talking to the faculty senate, communicating with the faculty at large, talking to the vice presidents, the deans, any group that wanted to invite me to come and said, hey, we'd like to talk about this. And so spend some time really figuring out what it is that should be that overall strategic, here it is that we want to go. Then what happens is you got to spend the next 6 months and have different task groups and things that would be focused on, okay, international programs, 2025, what should that look like and what resources do we need? Research, what should those look like and those need? Now some of those groups probably currently exist on campus, so you don't have to create them. But Those sort of things, I think, are task-oriented groups. So it's not a permanent group that you say, your job is for 6 months to go out and get campus input and help us put together this part of a particular plan. Then, so we're 1 year into it now. Okay, then we've got some sort of thing put together that hopefully is relatively brief, but has a lot of these key things in there. I think you spend another 6 months visiting with everybody when they have a chance to interact and comment on the plan that you're trying to do. Do they like the direction that we're going to go in? Is it the kind of thing, and this is really important, that when they go back to their office and you see one of your colleagues in the hall, you don't go, oh, another president, another plan. You know, you say, no, I think this has actually got some quality to it, and I really believe this is good for the university. I can't control whether that conversation occurs, but if the process is done well and it's something that the faculty are engaged in, that's the conversation that occurs, and that ultimately means it's going to be successful. Then after 18 months or so, we've got something that the university community, and I mean everybody, has commented on, been involved with, and I think at that point, then you look at sort of 4 and 5 year kind of steps that are taken that may be much more specific, much more quantitative, things like that. So I've thought through this in some respects, but part of it depends on institutional culture, and you can't get that off the internet. You know, you just got to be somewhere and interact with people and find out sort of what's there and what's not.
Selina, do you have another question?
Hi, my name is Alicia Starkey, and I'm director of the Salina Library. And I'm curious what you believe the role of the academic library is in the 21st century learning environment, and in particular with undergraduate learning experience.
Sure. I think we're seeing the role of libraries change somewhat as we look at moving ahead. At our library at Mississippi State, for example, we have lots of students in there using the computing resources and need a lot more help on determining the quality of information that they get, because the internet's out there and somebody types in some particular thing they're interested in and lots of stuff comes up, and some of it's good, some of it's bad, some of it's just terribly wrong and mediocre. So we find that the library staff is having to help our students learn how to appropriately find information, assess it, and use it in the different sorts of projects and things that they have. So it means, in my opinion, it's a lot more technology driven than it might have once been. I think we have students probably graduate that never actually opened a book in the library, but they've been there to do other things. So that role's changing. The role of library science is certainly not diminished in any way. So,
Thank you.
Selina. Jerry?
Dr. Schulz, I'm Jerry Freeman, head of the Department of Psychology. We met briefly earlier today, and so let me again say welcome to Kansas State University.
Thank you.
I'd like to turn the direction of the questions slightly to something more personal. Is there a person whom you greatly admire, one you might think of as a personal hero? And if so, who might that be?
I'm not sure I would term it a personal hero, but the Dean of Engineering when my wife and I were at Virginia Tech was Paul Torgeson. He was Dean of Engineering for 20-some years and later became president at Virginia Tech. He probably is the person that, as an academic administrator, I most look up to as an individual that probably had a lot of effects on me, even though he might not have really known it at the time. So we had him come visit us at Mississippi State, and we spent some time with him, and he's mentored both Noel and myself, different aspects of our careers, and we still communicate, and I've been surprised I haven't gotten an email note from him knowing that this visit was coming up. So I had a chance to visit with him when I was a dean and say, you know, Paul, I'd like to be a university president sometime, and we had some great conversations. So that's probably the person I would say I really probably look up to a great deal on what he was able to do and what he was able to accomplish, and not just the end result, but how he got there.
Can I ask another one quickly, since it looks like there's only one other person behind me? Is there a book that perhaps changed your life? This one takes a little more thought.
These are hard questions for the end of the day.
But you wanna be
I would
president.
say The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People probably is one of the books that I would say, from a professional point of view, had more to do with probably how I do things than most anything else that I would really point to. Built to Last is another book that talks about organizations that I would also put right up there, and I have a hard time choosing between the two of those because I think both of those are sort of seminal works that appealed to me a great deal personally.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Sandy Patton, and I'm a junior majoring in biology. And as you probably know, K-State has one of the largest and strongest Greek communities in the country. And so my question to you is, do you think it's important to this university that our Greek system remains strong? And if so, what is your vision for the future of the Greek community?
Sure. I think it's important, and I mentioned this during my meetings with some of the student officers, that we have strong student organizations across the board. Whether students are interested in a religious organization, a professional society, the Greek system, or whatever, I want students to come here and have a first-class experience in whatever particular direction that they go. The Greek community is an important traditional part of almost every university. So we want to make sure that for students who decide to pledge a fraternity or sorority, that it's a good experience for them, that it's, they have fun and those kind of things, but it's done in a safe, responsible manner. So I want to see our students have an opportunity to do whatever they would like to here and really excel and have a great experience doing it. So.
Hello, welcome to K-State. My name's Nick Lander. I'm an alum of K-State and now staff member here. And I'd like to ask about your perspective on privatization and outsourcing of university resources.
Okay. I think privatization has to be very carefully handled. We have undergone some privatizations at my current institution that if you ask the institution, has it worked, I don't think you would necessarily get a very positive answer. So there's a feeling that sometimes privatization will save gobs of money and things like that. So it's very important to examine that carefully from a financial and a human resource point of view. So sometimes you have to remember privatization may look good on the books, but if you're going to let 50 university employees go, you need to take that into account. So I think in a time of budget distress, everything has to be on the table. But right now, I would say that's not something that I would probably say that's the first steps that we need to take.
Dr. Kirk, what do you think of the color purple?
Not bad, not bad. So
I'm Andrea Blair. I work in student services in the disability office on campus here. And I was wondering if you could share a little bit about your definition of leadership and what gifts or strengths that you feel you have in the area of leadership that you could bring to K-State.
Sure. I think it's important for leaders to have several characteristics, and of course I'm probably going to describe my characteristics as much as the ones I think are ideal. I think transparency is really critical. People need to understand why people are making decisions. Doesn't mean everybody's going to agree with them, but everybody has to understand why things are being made. I think outstanding leaders are also outstanding communicators. I think people around them and the organization at large say, I know what's going on. I'm aware of what's happening, and I feel like I'm connected and in the loop. I think outstanding leaders also respect a great deal of those around them. So when you delegate something to somebody, you allow them the freedom and flexibility to go and do it and do a great job. And you don't try and get in there and say, well, that wasn't exactly how I wanted it done, and you start pushing and pulling in that particular way. And then finally, I think a leader has to have some vision and want to know sort of where they would like to be and where they want to take their organization. That needs to be shared, but initially somebody's got to say, that's the mountain that we need to go climb, and let's figure out how to do it. And so I think those are the sorts of things that I would bring as president of K-State, is a vision of where I think the institution can go, a sense of collaboration and communication and wanting to do it together. And somebody that I hope as a faculty member you say, you know, I know what Kirk's doing and I know what direction it looks like the institution's going, and I think it's a good thing. So.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Sarah Thurston Gonzalez. I'm the Director of the International Student and Scholar Services.
Hello.
I was just wondering if you could share with us maybe a personal or professional international experience that you could tell us a little bit more about your international exposure.
Sure. Noel was on sabbatical last semester at the University of Cardiff in Wales. So she was there for 4 months and just came back into the United States in December. And so we knew she was going to be gone, so we made several opportunities and trips where we went to go over to see her. And one we met in Spain for a week and went to both Valencia and Madrid. And then another one we went to Italy for a week and toured Rome and saw part of Wales. So those are a couple places we've been. I've also been to India and China and things like that. So I've traveled a reasonable amount and enjoy traveling. My favorite sort of quick story about traveling abroad is we had our 8th grader with us when we were in Valencia, Spain. And we'd been out to a board dinner, and Noel serves on a board, had lots of glasses of wine and all that stuff. And my younger son, of course, had not been imbibing, even though he wanted to. And so we're coming up, and we're coming out of the restaurant, and he runs over, hails a cab, and tells them in Valencia, Spain, where our hotel is and how we need to go. And so I thought, this is a young man right there that is going to want to do an international experience, and if he felt that comfortable, you got to remember, Starkville's 25,000. We don't have, there probably is a single cab, but you certainly don't have to go and flag one down. So that's one of my favorite sort of travel experiences, being abroad with my family.
Salina, do you have any additional questions?
I think we're good, Fred. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Yes, sir.
I don't know if I'm the final question or not. My name's Tom Ressler. I work for the K-State Alumni Association. It's my understanding the average tenure for a university president today is maybe 5 or 6 years, and you've talked about K-State 2025. Does that mean you'd be planning on being here for 15 or 16 years?
I think it takes a couple years simply to get to know everybody and to sort of become a member of the family, so to speak. So I think absolutely, I'd like to be here at least 10 years. So I would not want to put in place this really wonderful, far-reaching, visionary, inspiring plan and then bolt. So no, we would love to be here and love to be here a long time.
Thank you, everyone. This will conclude our question and answer period. I'll ask you to remain seated for a couple of moments. Would the members of the search committee that are in the room please stand? And Kathy, would you come forward? And Kareem at the back of the room. Mo Hosny, Jackie Hartman, Jerry Betcher, and Nelson Ghali, along with Chris Sorensen, Lydia Peel, Jennifer Owensby, Jonathan McClellan, and myself. If you have comments you would like to make, either way, about any of our candidates, please feel free to approach any of the search committee members and give us your input. You also have the sheet that we have given you an opportunity to respond to. We ask you to leave these at the back of the room with Kareem or Kathleen as you leave, or no later than tomorrow, fax them to the number shown by tomorrow noon. We thank you very much. Now I'm going to ask Dr. Sorensen and Dr. Hosny to come forward and escort our candidate and his wife to the Union Forum area, the Union Garden area out here, and then give you the opportunity to come and visit with them. Thank you.